I mean, obviously just talking into this, but one of the things we labor at it as we've gone along, this is what 30th episode, 31st, somewhere in there?
Yeah, right around 32
Yeah.
maybe? Okay, here we go.
Test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
I was about to say, okay, first question, guy, let's roll.
I'm trying to think of the best way.
This is an inside joke between Chuck and myself because I did pull him into this. He was like, so you're going to take the lead. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe.
No.
I've let him lead.
I have to say, no. But it's healthy for me, I guess.
Yeah. And he's
you
my
know
mentor.
what to do.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
You do.
You know what to do.
You do.
I always think one of the mysteries of radio, and Mandee, you would probably agree, is that making the sale, whether we're on the air, whether you're in a sales room, you still have to convince the public, whether it's buying your format or buying the radio station, the important person, whether it's us or in the sales room, is also the salesperson. And so what we wanted to do today on the Unknown Morning Show is bring in a certified, incredible sales professional.
She's a legend.
You bet. Been doing this for going on 4 decades. Her name is Pat Sips. Hi, Pat.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
For coming here on a Saturday. And, we had worked together at Tyler's KNUE, and I believe KTBB was probably part of the building.
KTBB too, yeah.
Part of the building back in the late 80s, early 90s. You were there early 90s and mid 90s and all that?
Well, I started actually with KTBB when they were downtown.
Wow.
In that Austin Bank building now.
Okay.
So we went up this kind of funky elevator to get to work every day. But yes, and then they they bought KNUE and moved the station to Brookside. So, yeah.
I always remember when KNUE started to really burst as a leader in the radio market, getting bigger shares. And I always remember the sales room. Walking through it, you could sense the power there with you, Marietta Taylor. And I don't know if the right folks were there at the right time. People like Gail Helms, Gail Steiner, Craig Renier.
Right.
And you just had maybe Jim Hendricks. Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe that was when with KOOI down the road. But,
yeah, I think that was.
But,
KOOI.
you had this sense of you had all of these, you have folks like yourself that absolutely stone cold knew what you were doing, which was going to a client, a possible client, and looking him in the eye and in the nicest possible way, trying to get the money from him. That's got to be so difficult.
Well, it is difficult. And, I went into this business from banking. And when I first moved to Tyler in the late 70s, I went to work for Southside Bank, which is a great company to work for. But it's so great that nobody ever leaves. So I felt like I would be kind of stuck. But I was happy there. But a friend of a friend told me that the sales manager at KTBB was looking for a salesperson. He said, you ought to apply. And I thought, I would never be able to do that. But I thought, well, it'll be a good experience just to interview for it. So I went down and interviewed and got the job. Well, it was a great experience for me to do that. But the first 3 months were tough in sales because I'd never had to go out and talk to people or walk in a door and see the manager race to the back door.
Yes, right? I smell a salesperson coming.
Right. It's like you had that image and everything. But what helped me, I think, was that I had more of an English accent there. And it kind of broke the ice where it was like, well, where are you from? What made you get into this business? And which was great and everything. But I wasn't really selling anything. So after 3 months, I thought, I just really don't think this is for me. But then again, I was enjoying it so much, and I loved the environment of radio. I loved the free flow, the creative part of it. And so I thought, you know what? I think I'll just give it 3 more months and I'm going to just relax, be myself. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, So that's what I did. So I went out and just, talked to people and relaxed. And I think they felt that relaxed approach rather than me being kind of tense trying to make the sale.
Yeah.
And it turned everything. So that 3 months turned into 40 years in the business.
Wow.
Laid the base for everything, huh? Yeah.
Laid the base for everything. But radio was a great, it's been great to me. I really enjoyed the people. And then later I went into TV and that was great too, but TV is very, more organized.
Well, I was going to say, what is the difference?
Yeah.
It has to be because it's all programming, with radio you get some flexibility. With TV there's no flexibility. So, but I liked it, but I really did enjoy my time in radio and work for KTBB and then KNUE, I was sales manager, and then I went to KTYL as general sales manager. And then during that time, I was going through a divorce and got divorced. And, I thought I had both my children were in college. And I thought, I kind of need a change here. So I need to kind of leave Tyler for a little while and kind of explore. And I'd always wanted to work for a major market. So I picked up the phone one day and I called KLIF. And
Okay.
This man answered the phone. And I said, told him what I would like to interview if there was an opening. And he said, well, this must be fate. I'm the general sales manager and I never answer the phone.
Wow.
So he said, because of that, I'm going to let you come in and interview. Why not? So I said, okay, great. So it was downtown on Maple Street. And so it was another little kind of aspect to this. It was on Maple Street. So I was kind of nervous and I went down there, got on the elevator, and there was this guy in there they were going to interview on Cliff. And we kind of hit it off. It was a long ride up and we were joking back and forth. And he went on to his interview and I went to the sales manager and she was interviewing me for the job. And then all of a sudden someone from the studio came in and said, would you mind coming on the air? This guy, I think he was a musician or somewhere in town. I don't even remember his name. And they said, he really liked you, would like for you to come in and join him on the interview.
That's awesome.
And I said, okay, I didn't want to turn it down. I'm like, got to be flexible here. I'm interviewing. Right. So I went into the studio and then the DJ said, he wants to ask you for a date on air.
Oh.
Talk about putting you on the spot, Pat.
I know. So I said, oh, okay. And I thought, well, I can't turn him down.
Right.
So we had a nice little exchange and he asked me for a date and I said yes.
Where's it going to be? That's a question.
Yeah. And then we left the studio and he said, okay. So I said, listen, I was playing along. I'm headed back to Tyler after this interview. I have a job there. And then it dawned on me, the man that owned KTYL lived in Dallas. And if he was listening to this station, I was interviewing for a job.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Fortunately, he didn't. But my thought was, well, if I don't get this job, I'm probably not going to have a job.
Oh, no.
But anyway, it all turned out and I did get the job. And I worked in the Dallas-Fort Worth market for KLIF and KPLX for probably about 18 months. And it was great. I really liked it, but it was a much harder day-to-day work regimen. You're in traffic trying to, well, first of all, it took me an hour to get to work, an hour to get home. Mm-hmm. Then getting to an appointment, the traffic, it was just kind of crazy. So Don Cheney here in Tyler contacted me, asked me if I was happy there, would I like to come back, and he had a management position, and I thought, I think I enjoy this, but I'm really comfortable in the East Texas market. And actually, the sales manager at KLIF, when I interviewed with him, he said, don't discount your contacts that you have built in East Texas. You're going to find that's huge, because you're in a big market now, and it's going to be very different. You're not going to actually see the person that owns the business most of the time. It's a layer of people you're going to have to go through. Mm-hmm. And so, and that was true, but that being said, it was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. But then I came back to East Texas and worked for Don Cheney for a while. And then I got an offer to go to work for Phil Hurley and John Gaston.
Mm-hmm. 56?
56,
okay.
Which was great. They're two great guys. I love both of them. And I worked there. And then when they bought CBS, I went over there. I had a gap in between there, which I'll tell you about, was another endeavor. And then I left CBS in 2019, and I went to work for my biggest client, Steve Herber, who I still kind of work part-time for. And he's a great guy, has been great to me my whole career, and so we get along famously, and it's been a good transition for me.
Well, probably on the TV side, you probably encountered our good friend Brian Houston a couple times.
I love Brian Houston. Well, Brian Houston was the morning DJ on KTBB downtown when I went to work there.
I was going to ask you that. We've had Brian in the hot seat here, and Brian and I have talked about that a few times when he was coming in from Lufkin Radio, I think, maybe something like that. But Brian and I back in, 2008 to 10, did sports radio together. Wonderful to work with. I learned a lot from Brian as far as doing this, and Reed Kerr and I worked together doing a sports show for a couple of years, and it was a lot. It was a lot of fun.
He's a stellar guy. He was known then as Brad Houston. That was his name on air.
Yes,
yeah.
I remember
it was
that.
Brad Houston. He was on air there, and he was just he was. I mean, he was the DJ. He was it in Tyler.
Radio in general, and I've said this, that I have met either part-timers or folks who've been temps, and they all walk away from radio saying the same thing. I don't want to leave this place. You seem to have so much fun.
Yes.
I tell friends now, I'm in news. I've been working, not playing George Strait records for about a decade, but man, we still have fun in the newsroom. We have a great time in the newsroom.
Yeah.
I mean, things happen. Syria falls. You've got to address that.
Well, when you have a talent like you guys do to be on the air, that's a gift to be able to work and use your talent and love what you do, because there's a lot of people that go to work every day that really don't love what they do, but it's a job. Mm-hmm. If you can work in a job that you love, that you have the talent for, that's really a gift, I think.
Sure, absolutely. And it's like, in sales, the one, and I before we hit the mics, and I'd mentioned to you, Pat, that I'd done sales once. It wasn't radio sales, but it was in 90. I was doing cable sales for a year, and it was like a traveling gig where you'd go to a town and be with United Cable. And so, knock, knock, I'm Chuck from United Cable, and then, pitch Showtime or whatever. But the thing that it taught me is if I was not out in the field talking to people, there was zero chance of making any cash.
Yeah.
And sometimes you still didn't make it anyway, but it was kind of... Buy me a cup of coffee, Mandee.
Yeah.
I've seen that on other podcasts. That's literally
Yeah, it's like a virtual tip jar. It's really that simple. So you go to the show notes, click Buy Me a Coffee, and then you have an opportunity to support the show in any way you like. Imagine yourself going to coffee with Chuck and myself and saying, hey, I like what you do on the show. I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee. Only all you have to do is click a link. It's that simple.
It's the
sort of
sports analogy. You miss every shot you don't take, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
If you're not knocking on doors. You're not making the shot.
That's right. If you're not in front of somebody, you're not making any money. I tell you what helped me a lot too is that, I talked about my accent. And so I was tapped to do a few commercials.
Of course.
So I did that back in the day because it was distinctive, it stood out. So what I did was a lot of times when I would talk to a client and he wasn't ready to buy, I needed to give them something to listen to, a tape or a sample. So I would go back to the studio and I would write the commercial because I knew what his needs were. I'd asked enough questions. So I wrote the commercial and then I would bug the production guy to let me come in and I would produce it and put it on a cassette back in those days.
Sure.
So I would take it back in and say, hey, I made this commercial for you. I wanted you to see what you think about it. If you would like to run it. And so that's a lot of the way I sold. It helped me to be able to turn it like that.
Yeah.
So it gave me a little bit of an advantage. And so it was fun. That's what was fun about it.
But you know what? I'm sure, Pat, that client sat there and thought, you know what? If Pat is going to take care of me before I sign the contract,
right.
What is she going to be like after I sign on the dotted line? It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, they really appreciated that I took the time to do that. And that helped me. But you've always, in any sales, you've always got to kind of go the extra mile because there's so many people out there competing for business.
We're talking about competition. And whenever I would encounter anybody that would say, we love your radio station. And this goes back 30 years ago. I would tell people, I appreciate your listenership because you have plenty of things to pick from. Well, now it's nuts. So what I wanted to ask you right now, how does social media impact advertising? Meaning, if somebody says, well, yeah, I can get it off YouTube or I can just post it on YouTube versus advertising or advertising on TV or radio. How
tremendously impacts it.
Okay.
Tremendously, because everything is different. Now, I'm glad that I was in that era where, it was radio and TV and they actually was taking over the newspaper's role as being the media.
Sure.
So, now it's so fragmented and people can go on Facebook Marketplace and post their own ads. It's just different. And it's kind of like when someone's writing a check for advertising that they ran on the air. They used to be able to see it. They turn on their TV, whatever station they bought, and they could see their ad, or turn on the radio and they could hear their ad. With social media or with the streaming, you don't see it, you don't hear it. You're writing this check every month and you're not sure what you're writing it for. And when you don't see your own advertising, it's kind of like, well, what am I doing this for?
And you picked up you say a big thing when you talked about streaming, because a lot of times, maybe not in the initial stream, but let's say you're watching a rerun, you can just fast forward through the commercials now too. I mean, it's just, it presents a lot. A
lot of the streaming, though, they will not let you bypass the commercials now.
We were watching something last night and the big flag said, no, you're not going to be able to do this. Well, what if we want, it just said you won't be able to
I've noticed
forward.
They have a counter at least, though. It's like you've got 2 minutes and 15 seconds that I'm going to take up your time here. And we were watching Thursday Night Football this week, and on Prime, I had the opportunity to order the Pizza Hut triple threat or something if I clicked my remote on the advertising.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's amazing now what's available. I mean, you didn't have that option when you were selling KETK and CBS.
No, and it's that's why it's changed so much.
Yeah.
I would not like to still be in that business now. I think it's just too complicated. It's streaming is really taking over. There's too many places people can go. I mean, we used to be split. You had radio, TV, newspaper, magazines. You had to fight those. But now you've got everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's as difficult. And traditional TV is still good. I mean, I like the local stations, but they've got a lot of competition. I'm sure it's difficult.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, I mean, it seems like, with the advent of social media, when I first felt it, I want to say 2012, I was at a station and we were sports talk, half and half, and we were going to be acquiring the Dallas Cowboys, and which was a big deal. And, in-house, we were saying, well, hey, we knew ESPN was floating around out there. Let's grab ESPN because then we can sit there and make this into a situation where instead of trying to, because at the time we were like local in the mornings, Dennis Miller, sports talk, and it was just try to sit there and let's make it like ESPN East Texas and be done with it. And at the time, the explanation was, well, we're going to wait till next year for politicals. And even at that time, I thought, well, no, because our station wasn't high rated or anything. They're going to go to BB, KTBB, and then TV, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so that was something. Even then, I thought, yeah, social. And now it's, you have, let's say, a candidate wants to get their point across. They're going to have their private channel. They may say, for instance, put something on Facebook and say, oh, I have a certain, I have something I want to tell you on this referendum. Please go to my YouTube channel. Boom.
Yeah. They can go live and have their own private broadcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy. You even this is years ago. I remember you were telling me about if I wanted to take my phone, press live on Facebook, and I'd be broadcasting live, and I just was like, I'm going to get more coffee and just kind of dwell on it. I'm going to dwell on that a little bit.
That's just too much.
Yes. It's just,
And who knows where it will go from here?
I know,
mean,
right?
It's kind of awesome in one way, but then again, I don't know. I think your KTBB talk radio is still very popular.
We're lucky. I think it almost varies owner by owner. Paul Gleiser is so committed to the local mission. I've said this before. I said, name a radio station throughout. In Saturdays and Sundays we have live broadcasting too. An art show, real estate show. So start naming places where in Tyler Longview where you're going to have it to where you'll hear time checks, you'll hear timely news. You just don't anymore.
Right.
I mean, it used to be, a big deal, even if you were a music station to where you had some sort of news, maybe from 6 to 8 in the morning, 3 to 5 in the afternoon, and, not so much anymore. And I don't know if I even disagree with that. I think if I was running a music station, I don't know. But to me, it's whether your news, talk, whatever music format, weather still is a paramount thing. You still have to put on your public service beanie to, service the public. Because at least in my mind, it's always been one of those things. If, when Mother Nature decides, well, we're going to break loose, well, then you set everything to the side and make sure your troops are organized, that everybody understands what you have to do, and you do it and get it done.
Yes.
But now it's, it's different because most radio stations have it to where you can punch a button and go to your TV affiliate, which quite frankly is a blessing because those guys can explain it better than I can. Although I have to say this,
there's a story here.
No,
here we go.
It was, I want to say in the mid 90s when BB, maybe early 90s, BB and KNU are affiliated. And we're doing weather. Dr. Bob is our weathercaster. And I'll explain this real quick for those that have never heard of Dr. Bob Peters.
Who's a legend.
A legend. He did this. He taught politics at Tyler Junior College, but he was a radio weathercaster for 50 years. And he goes, well, great. Dr. Bob is blind. And so the most crazy, awe-inspiring thing you'll get is I would read the radar to him from the National Weather Service, and after, George Strait is singing Amarillo by Morning, Bob would come on and just start doing it. And I remember the first time he did it, I was just kind of sitting there staring at the needles on the console and going, whoa, how does he do this? Just, I had heard that they had something, and maybe this was 15, 20 years ago on BB, where people would call in and they would give Dr. Bob a random city and he would tell them the high for the day.
He was amazing.
Just
amazing.
Just crazy.
Right. Well, another icon too was Mike Edwards.
Oh, yeah. Mike lives down the street.
I loved Mike. Only thing I didn't like was every time it was my birthday, he would announce my birthday on air and then say my age. And I finally said, Mike, stop. You can wish me happy birthday. Just don't say my age. But of course, that didn't work.
He gave the exact age?
Oh, no.
Yeah, you can't.
Mike.
You can't.
Come on now.
No, the secret of that is
I think when I got to a certain age, he did kind of like say, okay, I'll be sympathetic to.
No, first of all, if you do age, and Rosanna, you're the best looking 50-year-old I have ever seen. See? You aim low.
Yes, while you're still married.
And then and Roseanne would say, I've earned every year. And that's the trial you have of being married to me, hon. So, but.
Well, Pat, you mentioned you had a gap year and that there was a story there. I'd love to hear that.
Yes. So I had I decided, this was probably in 2000, that I wanted to do something different. Mm-hmm. And so I had a friend that, and this just kind of came out of the blue. I had a friend that was a flight attendant for American Airlines, and she had flown to Lima, Peru, and we had gotten together, and she had on this beautiful alpaca sweater coat. And I said, oh gosh, that's gorgeous. Where did you get that? She said, I got this while I was in Lima. And she said, and alpaca is expensive. Mm-hmm. It's soft. It's baby alpaca. She said, I got this. It was $23.
Whoa.
And I said, oh my gosh.
What a bargain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, we could make a business out of this. And she said, well, she's still working. And so I said, next time you go to Lima, I'd like to go with you. So we went and we talked. They have the public squares where they have the little areas like they do in Mexico, where
like
the
families
cut the markets, mm-hmm. the families come in and show their goods. And so I had an interpreter, and we talked to this family, and they already had exported to Canada, but they never exported to the United States, but they said they could. So we came back. It was funny. And we brought 2 or 3 coats with us, and we went to Highland Park Village, and we went to each shop in there and showed the coats, and each one of them wanted them. Oh. And so we said, okay, we have something here. So we set up a business. I got our label and all of our importing documents in order, and we went to Dallas Market and showed our product, and then we signed up some sales reps, one from New York, one from Los Angeles, one from Minneapolis.
Wow.
And we shipped in I shipped in some products. She finally said she couldn't do both, and she felt like I was doing everything, so she didn't think it was fair. She kind of wanted to get out. So I stayed in, though, because I liked it. And anyway, so I had these reps that went out and they would take orders, and I would import the product. They would take it out and sell it. And I did that for about 7 years. And then there was kind of we sold mostly to small boutiques.
Boutiques?
Yeah. And so there was a downturn in the economy. It was getting harder to get my money to get paid, and to import, I had to already pay for the product before they would send it over. So I thought, things are getting a little bit sticky here. Might be a time to let this be for a while. And then I never did get back in it. But it was an interesting thing. I didn't make as much money actually doing that as I did in TV advertising.
But it was fun.
But you had fun, right?
But I had fun. It was a passion. I loved doing it.
What was
so
your
I
label?
finally just got back into the TV business. I said, okay, I really need to start, getting my 401k going again.
Build back
Which
up.
is a good thing I did. So
Yes.
that was my break from
Yes.
there.
Did
Yeah.
you have a name for your label?
It was Alpaca Trunk.
Alpaca
Yeah.
Trunk. Very cool.
Yeah. And so it was fun. It was something I would never in a million years think I would be importing sweaters from Peru. I mean, it was like, how did I get here?
But that's something you put on your
Yeah.
resume, and they go, TV,
incredible.
radio, alpaca. Well, now, let's talk.
Let's talk
See?
about this. Yeah. Another opportunity to have a story. I feel like that helps when you're in sales. If you've got something
Yes.
that's unique or different,
Yes.
and they either recognize your name or like your accent,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
an icebreaker because there's
Yeah.
something different about you. It sets you apart from the average person
Yeah.
who's come in with a box of cookies and trying to get their time.
And Marietta, you mentioned her. She was a dear friend, and we had so much fun together, just as friends, as well as we were working together. But she was that person, this, Chuck. She would walk into a room and the room would light up.
Yeah.
She had that charisma,
She was wonderful and sweet.
Yes.
And she balanced it out. She reminds me of my wife a little bit, balances the Southern Belle thing
Yes.
with also a real steel spine and reserve.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, when Rosanna wants to get something done, it's just, okay, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marietta was like that, but she was very charming, and she's a very attractive lady and had this great Southern personality, and people just loved her everywhere she went. I mean, I think it was easy for her to close a deal. We all had to have something.
Yeah.
You were talking about going to Lima, Peru, and it rings. I'll look on your Facebook and Instagram. You're quite the world traveler.
Yes.
Or it seems that way.
I've probably been to
How many
about
countries?
26 different countries.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yes. I have, and I've traveled a lot with my friend that's a flight attendant. Her and I used to have a big trip every year. And, last year we went to Portugal. This year I'm kind of probably going to do something, or the coming year, 25, I'd probably like to do something more in the United States. Yeah, it's been really fun. I love to go to different countries and kind of mingle in with the culture and see. But really now, to be quite honest, I feel like I've seen all the countries. I've been back to a couple of them twice, 2 or 3 times, but I kind of feel like I need to kind of focus on, I'd like to go to Seattle, take the train over to Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go to the Northeast to maybe, Maine and that area. So I think I'd kind of like to stay closer to home a little bit now. And I'll go back to London because that's my home. That's my favorite place to go. But yeah.
I've only been overseas once. The kids were, our son and his wife and the grands were in Germany for better part of a decade, and they've since come back. But the thing that kind of fascinated me is before that, I hadn't flown for 20 years. And the last time I flew was kind of a white knuckle flight going to Nashville. And so when we were going over and coming back, I was sort of thinking, what's this going to be like? I thought it was really pleasant. I like the transatlantic flights. I mean, I didn't feel like I was getting nickel and dime for everything, where if I was doing the puddle jumpers here in the States, it would be like, if I wanted to watch something, on TV, it was like, oh, give us your credit card for the next hour. It's like, I went to Germany and it cost me nothing. I thought it was just a different experience. And the other thing was, when we were going over, I didn't think about this, but we stopped in Dublin to get to Berlin, and they had an English breakfast. We just ate, and I said, we'll get it coming back, right? I didn't realize that when you come back, it's just like, cloud sandwiches,
This was a funny story. The one we were going to the British Virgin Islands with some friends, and I can't remember where we flew through to get there. Maybe Puerto Rico. Does that sound right, Pat? I can't remember. And I had made these homemade protein bars with oats, honey, peanut butter, and a protein powder, and just put them in a Ziploc bag and tried to get them through. I got the funniest looks and had the strangest conversations with the TSA agent, because by the time it got there, they had been refrigerated and looked like little bars. But by the time I got to the TSA agent, it looked like a bag of poop. It was just this brown, it was the strangest looking.
Don't open this.
Yeah, he was like, and this is, and I was like, I can tell you what's in it, and you can open it and smell it if you want to, but it's oats, honey, peanut butter, and protein powder. He was like, okay, just take it and go on. It was the funniest thing. They gave me a hard time, but
he didn't believe the nice lady, huh?
Yeah. The only other time, this was years ago, I've traveled frequently since I married my husband, Aaron, because he loves to travel too. But prior to that, I had only flown a couple of times, and I was probably 28, and I was flying to Utah. We were going skiing, and I had never skied before, and I was nervous, and I had all this stuff packed, and I roll in to check in, go through TSA, and I had a can of Diet Coke in my bag. And you can't take that through.
Yeah.
I never even crossed my mind. I didn't fly often enough to know that and the guy looked at me, he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
He was like, well, I have to confiscate this. And I was like, okay, enjoy the Diet Coke. Like, I didn't know what to say to him. I was so embarrassed. I was like, I really didn't know. He was like, it's okay. You just can't take it through. And I'll know next time.
But that stuff is nerve-wracking.
Yeah, because I think I'd flown twice before that maybe, and it had been years.
I think the most nerve-wracking is going through that, the customs, or going through security. You having to move fast, and you're trying to get your, if you travel like we did a lot, where we did carry on, get the suitcase up, they get the bags out, get the plastic bags out. And it's like very... Yeah, that part of the trip is always, to me, the most stressful.
It is. You feel vulnerable.
Because that it's going so fast, and you don't want to hold people up. But you're trying to get this done and that done, and try to get your shoes back on. And
that was my question. Did you have to do the shoes? I had to take my belt off. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
No.
It's interesting. Aaron and I we signed up for all the things. We're both TSA pre-checked, and there's, I think, a global entry now that you can pay for.
Is that where you go around everything?
You kind of, and
Our
you don't
son
have to
has
take
that.
your shoes
He
off
travels
anymore.
a lot. Yeah.
And it's, if you're traveling frequently, I have found it to be worth the expense. Yeah, I think it was like $100 for 5 years or something for global entry. So, if you take a trip a year, it's worth it.
Yes,
$20 to avoid all that line and some of the crazy.
Some of those TSA lines are pretty.
They're long. You could miss a flight
now, because everyone is kind of have the same idea. We'll get the pre-check. So sometimes they can take a long time.
Yeah, they're longer than they used to be, for sure. I should quit telling people how great they are.
I know. Exactly. Everyone's doing it.
Yeah, it's really not worth it. You should just go through the line. Don't pay for it. It's not worth it. Not worth it at all.
I'm not a great traveler, though. I tend to, if I'm in
You're
Dallas,
a homebody.
If I'm in Dallas more than 12 hours, I just break out in hives. I just don't really particularly like it that much. When we had the farm in Chandler, especially, man, it would be like, I'd get inside the gates, close the gate. I'd say, okay, I am back inside the castle. We're safe.
My safe place.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I would tell people many times, I said, if I had a bad day, close the gates, get a hug from Rosanna, and then we're golden. That works very, very, very well for me.
Well, lucky you. You have that.
I'm telling you, I've told a few young jocks, okay, here's the deal. Get yourself a Rosanna. Mm-hmm. What's that? Well, you'll know it when you hit it.
An accountant, an accountant for life.
Accountant. She's the accountant for life. She's a great cook. She has very high toleration. My picture pops up, but we work well together. I've always told her, I said, oh, thank God you weren't interested in somebody that knew the law. I mean.
Well, Rosanna's made the bar too high for most of it.
What else do we need to know about? I mean, we've covered radio and TV and your traveling exploits.
And alpaca.
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 That was an exciting surprise.
That was crazy. I was like, it wasn't on the bingo card this morning.
It wasn't.
That's for sure.
Well, do you have any fun memories from your childhood in London that you want to share? Anything exciting? Or?
Well, I didn't live in London. I lived close to Cambridge in a small village called Mildenhall. And in this village is a huge United States Air Force base.
Okay.
And I worked as a switchboard operator on the Air Force base. And as a young single woman, it was a wonderful place.
I bet it was.
It was a wonderful place to be.
Yes.
Opportunity.
You're right. But that's where I met my husband, my children's dad, and we got married and came over. But my childhood there was great, and also we had some struggles. I was raised really by a single father. I was the youngest of 4 siblings. And so that was kind of difficult, but he was a great dad. It was hard, but I was very, very, very attached to my dad. And I was the youngest. I was 1, and my brother was 10. So there was a big gap there. Yeah. But we survived. I had good relatives. I had a great dad. So that was it was different, because you grow up, you don't have a mother. Makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
Makes a big difference. But anyway, but I love England. I'm glad I grew up there. I had a great experience growing up as far as the country and my friends and the culture there. And, but I love the United States. I'm very happy here. I would never want to go anywhere else, but I do love, when I go back, I still have in my heart a love for England.
I could see that.
As we've gone throughout, the time here, you said you're semi-retired, but do you want to be semi-retired, or do you want to just keep going? Do you think there's another opportunity? Is there another alpaca farm waiting for Pat Zips?
Possibly. I like to keep busy. Mm-hmm. So since but I didn't really want to stay in the media sales business. So, but I want to keep busy. So I've been working with, Meals on Wheels and the Salvation Army just to kind of help out. And that's been great because I've met some wonderful ladies and good friends. And so that's expanded my social activities. But at heart, I'm really an entrepreneur. I'm always thinking, that'd be kind of cool to do that. Then I always think, well, look, you're retired. Stop this. But I think it's good to always keep your mind, wondering what if something came up, I would probably jump at it. But I doubt that's going to happen.
You never know, though.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Well, I always have this thing in my head, and while I'm doing vacation now, it seems like in a regular vacation, usually Thursday, I start to get itchy. And even this week, I'll sit there and, check out we can sit there from home and check out the KTBB website on the back end. I'm just going, what's going on, or what's going on?
So you're still working?
Not really. Well, and this week, I edited a couple podcasts this week.
I'm teasing you. I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, I don't like to sit that much. I don't know, but Got a couple podcasts to edit. We have our project, as far as some things for the podcast. I was doing that at 2 a.m. I wake.
Oh,
my dog has eating times. I will usually get up at about 2:30, 3 o'clock, because I'll take a look at, during a regular week, I'll look at sports. And the reason why I look at sports is part of my job is to do sports casts, and I'll see what sound is available. And so I do some pre-work there. He gets fed. Everybody's kind of happy there.
right, right.
I don't know.
You take another little nap after 3.
Yeah, no, I do, because I would be non-functional later in the day.
It seems like there's a lot of people that are really creative. They do wake up in the middle of the night and start, maybe their brain is rested or their dreams of coming up with something, but seems like that's a common thing.
I tend to do pretty good after maybe a half-hour nap. My wife says that it's like this, I function very, very well after just 20 minutes, and I can wake up and go, wow, it's been a couple hours. No, it's only been, half hour or so. So, I don't know.
The power of a nap.
No kidding. The power of a nap. Do we have more to cover? Mandee, do you have more to cover?
We had a quick conversation before we turned the mics on about radio in London when you were young, and you were talking about, you had just the BBC until there was one. Do you want to kind of tell that story? I think it's interesting.
So growing up, in my teenage years, we had the BBC, which is a government-owned media company. And so we had to listen to whatever the BBC kind of dished out to us. Well, then a group of people, we called them the pirates, took a ship off into the ocean and set up a radio station there and started playing all the music that we loved, and we could tune in and listen to it. Well, of course, the BBC and all, they didn't like it, but there was really nothing they could do. It was out in the middle of the ocean, and they were broadcasting in. But anyway, it became a pirate ship. And I think you said, Mandee, there was a short film on it, because it was different. But it was fun. That was I thought how brave they were to go do that, innovative,
Right.
Yeah. I think those of us that, got into broadcasting, you'd read about Radio Caroline and this romantic type thing, you're out on the ship, in the middle of the North Atlantic.
Yeah, it does sound brave to me. I mean, that's not something I'd be necessarily up for easily.
I like to collect air checks of, other jocks, big time guys or whatever. And one of my favorite in my collection is in Radio Luxembourg, an American named Benny Brown did the night show there sometime in the 80s. And I have it's a couple hours of his show, Telescope. And it's just the coolest thing ever because, again, it's this romantic thing that an American in Luxembourg with Radio Luxembourg. And I thought, this is just the coolest thing ever. It was just, to me, it just sounded fantastic. We've covered a lot of territory.
Yes, we have.
It's
been so much fun.
You can just edit it away.
We have covered, and we've covered, salesmanship, alpaca, coats, what's going on in Europe, Lima, Peru. Well, that's kind of attack. Is
Peru alpaca. South America? Forgive me, my world geography is not my strong suit. I love to travel, but is Lima, Peru's in South America?
Yes, it's down by Colombia, down that area.
Yeah.
Panama.
Okay. So not Europe.
No.
I was in my brain. I was
South America.
Yes, right. I was like, we've covered we've covered a few continents.
South America, Europe,
North America.
Yes. And
Great Britain.
And Mandee, just to take the pressure off, there are times where people will say something like Des Moines, and I'm going, let's see, Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's between Canada and Texas.
Yes.
Somewhere.
It reminds me of when I moved here in 1984. Swear to God, Pat, I'm moving from Milwaukee, and I get to Kansas City, and I go, what have I done? How far is Texas from here? And people would explain to me, they go, oh, no, it's 1,000 miles across Texas. Mm-hmm. And without a doubt, and then I would say, when I landed in East Texas, I would say, well, where's the tumbleweeds? it would be like one Mississippi. Oh, that's Abilene. That's West Texas.
It's funny how the terrain's so different, though.
It is.
From like, I've lived in El Paso, from there to East Texas. I mean, it's like two different countries.
It really is.
Yeah.
We have covered a lot of ground. This has been so much fun, Pat. Thank you for making time for us.
Okay, you're welcome. Well, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. I hope it turns out okay.
It's going to turn
It'll be
out well.
amazing.
This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
Podcasting.
gear,
And the gearheads that use the gear.
and making money with a hot mic.
And other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.